Why do the Irish hate the British? Here is the short answer. 600 years of occupation, land theft, language suppression, a famine that killed 1 million people while food was exported under armed guard, a rebellion crushed by executions, decades of conflict in the north that Britain pretended was not its problem. That is the short answer. Now let us give you the real one. My name is Tig, and this is the history they never taught you. The real reason the Irish and the British have one of the most complicated relationships in human history. First, let us be honest about something. Not all Irish people hate the British. Most Irish people have British friends, watch British television, support British sports teams, and think nothing of it. The relationship between ordinary Irish and British people is warm, close, and genuinely friendly. What the Irish have is a deep, complicated, historically justified anger toward the British establishment. The government, the crown, the system. And when you understand what that system did to Ireland over 6 centuries, you will understand why that anger has never fully gone away. It begins in 1169. Anglo-Norman forces cross into Ireland at the invitation of an Irish king who wanted help in a local dispute. They never left. What started as a military intervention became an occupation that lasted 800 years. 800 years. To put that in perspective, America has existed for less than 250 years. Ireland was under British control for more than 3 times that. Reason 1. They took the land. Under a series of plantations beginning in the 1500s, the British systematically removed Irish families from their land and replaced them with Protestant settlers from England and Scotland. The most famous of these was the Ulster Plantation of 1610. Entire counties cleared. Irish families who had farmed the same land for generations, gone. Their land handed to British settlers loyal to the crown. This was not a gradual economic shift. This was deliberate, organized dispossession. By the mid-1700s, Catholics, who made up 80% of Ireland's population, owned just 7% of Irish land. 7% of their own country. Reason 2. The Penal Laws. Beginning in the late 1600s, the British government passed a series of laws specifically designed to destroy Irish Catholic life. Catholics could not own a horse worth more than £5. Catholics could not vote. Catholics could not hold public office. Catholics could not practice their religion openly. Catholic priests were banned. Catholic schools were banned. Irish children were educated in illegal outdoor schools called hedge schools, hiding in fields and ditches to learn because the British had made their education a crime. Let that settle. Children hiding in ditches to learn to read in their own country, because the occupying power had made their education illegal. Reason 3. They tried to erase the Irish language. Before British rule, Irish, one of the oldest written languages in the world, was spoken by the vast majority of people on this island. Under British rule, the Irish language was systematically suppressed. The national schools established in 1831 taught exclusively in English. Children who spoke Irish in school were made to wear a tally stick around their neck, a bata scoia, and were beaten for every Irish word spoken. A language spoken continuously for 3,000 years, nearly wiped out in 2 generations. Today, Irish is spoken fluently by a small minority of people in Ireland. That is not a natural decline. That is the result of deliberate policy. Reason 4. Oliver Cromwell. In 1649, Oliver Cromwell arrived in Ireland with a parliamentary army and conducted what many Irish historians describe as a campaign of ethnic cleansing. At Drogheda, a town north of Dublin, Cromwell's forces massacred approximately 3,500 people. Soldiers, civilians, Catholic priests, men, women, and children. He then marched to Wexford, where another 2,000 were killed. Cromwell famously declared that the Irish could go to hell or to Connaught, the most barren and rocky province of Ireland, as his forces drove Irish families from their fertile land in the east and south. After Cromwell's campaign, the Irish Catholic population had fallen by as much as 40%. 40%. In less than a decade. Through war. Through famine caused by the destruction of crops. Through forced transportation to the Caribbean as indentured labourers. Cromwell is celebrated in England as a hero of parliamentary democracy. In Ireland, his name is still spoken with cold hatred 370 years later. Reason 5. The Great Famine. You already know this story if you watched our last video. But it belongs here too because it sits at the very center of why this relationship is so damaged. 1 million people dead. 2 million fled. Food exported under armed British guard while people starved. The man responsible knighted for his efforts. The famine did not just kill people. It confirmed something the Irish had suspected for centuries. That, to the British establishment, Irish lives did not matter. Reason 6. The executions of 1916. On Easter Monday, 1916, a small group of Irish rebels seized the General Post Office in Dublin and declared an Irish Republic. The rising lasted 6 days before being crushed by British forces. Initially, many Dublin civilians were actually angry at the rebels. The rising had caused enormous destruction and disruption to the city. Then the British made a catastrophic mistake. They executed the leaders. One by one. Over 10 days. 16 men shot by firing squad in Kilmainham jail. One of them, James Connolly, was so badly wounded from the fighting that he could not stand. They tied him to a chair and shot him. Public opinion in Ireland shifted overnight. The men who had been seen as reckless troublemakers became martyrs, and the cause of Irish independence became unstoppable. Reason 7. The Troubles. From 1968 to 1998, Northern Ireland, which had remained part of the United Kingdom after Irish independence, was engulfed in a conflict that killed over 3,500 people. Irish Catholic nationalists who wanted a united Ireland, Protestant Unionists who wanted to remain British, and a British army and government whose handling of the situation added fuel to the fire at almost every turn. Bloody Sunday. The 30th of January, 1972. British soldiers opened fire on unarmed civilian protesters in Derry. 14 people killed. All civilians. All unarmed. The British government spent the next 38 years insisting it was justified. In 2010, 38 years later, Prime Minister David Cameron finally admitted it was unjustified and unjustifiable and issued a formal apology. 38 years for 14 murdered civilians to receive an apology. And here is what makes this story different from simple hatred. The Irish are not defined by anger toward Britain. They are defined by what they built despite everything that was done to them. The language survived, spoken by communities in the west of Ireland and taught in schools across the country today. The culture survived, Irish music, storytelling, literature, producing 4 Nobel Prize winners from a population of 5 million. The people survived, scattering across the world and building something remarkable in every country they landed in. The Irish relationship with Britain is not simple hatred. It is something more complicated and more human than that. It is the feeling of someone who was wronged deeply by someone they have to live next door to forever, and who is still waiting for a genuine apology. 600 years, land taken, language suppressed, religion criminalized, a famine allowed to happen, rebels executed, civilians shot on the streets of their own city. That is why. That is the history they never taught you, and that is why it still matters today. If you want to keep going deeper into the history they locked away, subscribe to the Irish Vault, because we are just getting started.